Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sustainability Live London. First of all, huge congratulations, one, for navigating the tube strike again, two, for avoiding everyone who were on Lime bikes for the first time, and it shows. That was a slightly terrifying walk home back to the hotel after the show yesterday. And thirdly, not getting tempted to go to the Christmas show next door, because that looks fun. That looks a lot of fun. So well done for avoiding that and enjoying the irony of an awful lot of plastic tat next to the sustainability show. What a lovely juxtaposition that is. I did consider asking Santa, who was down there, to come and do a keynote, because as you do, you wonder what Santa's carbon footprint would be. If you'll forgive me, if we go by the traditional and magical Santa model, see, there's method to this. This is by the assumption that the magical sleigh pulled by flying reindeer delivers gifts globally in one night, uses the North Pole workshop. Apparently it's a carbon footprint which is zero or negligible, because magic reindeer don't emit CO2, time travel, no fossil fuels there, and elves and toy making powered by Christmas spirit. That's the one model. The second model is the modernized Santa logistical model. I'm going to run through this quite quickly, so stay with me. So, toy production, 1.3 to 3 billion kilograms of CO2, assumes mass produce of plastic electronic toys for 2 billion children. Packaging and wrapping, 100 million kilograms of CO2. North Pole operations, energy use for workshops, lights, reindeer barns, etc. Delivery flights, one night, 10 to 30 million kilograms of CO2, if using aircraft-like energy. And reindeer methane, we were all thinking it. One reindeer emits 100 kilograms of CO2 per year. 9 reindeer, 900 kilograms CO2 per year. Conclusion, modern logistical Santa could generate 1.5 to 3 plus billion kilograms of CO2 annually, similar to a large multinational company. I think we need Santa on this stage to answer some very difficult questions. Right, I will breathe. Should I have memorized that? That'd be more impressive, wouldn't it? Didn't happen. Anyway, let's move on to something slightly more serious, but also very, very exciting. We are opening keynote. This is with Envision Racing Formula E team. We're joined by Sylvain Filippi, Managing Director and CTO, and our subject is The Future is Electric. A warm welcome for Sylvain, please.
Good morning. To echo this, well done for those who made it here. My trip this morning was made of my electric car journey to the train to here, and then chaos at Waterloo, so Lime bike all the way there. So electric all the way, really good. Well done. And I understand we have some people watching remotely, right, as well. Really good. Okay, so I've been asked to do a little intro about Formula E, so I will happily do that. And then I think we have time for some questions at the end, which is usually my favorite part. So, as always, I do this every year, every time I go. Could you please raise your hand up if you've heard of Formula E before? Every year, it's better. Fantastic. That's my very unscientific market research. Okay, so how does this work? This is me. And these are the slides. All right, so most of you have heard of Formula E, which is great. I'll go through the basics, and then we can go in more details later. So Formula E was established in 2012, actually. That's when the idea started from the FIA and actually the European Commission, who asked the FIA what they were planning to do around electric cars, because the forecast at the time was to have more and more electric cars on the road. And among the many championships around the world, there was nothing electric. So that's where the idea came from. And then in 2014, we started racing. So we have now finished our 11th season. Past July in London, and we're about to start our 12th season, so 12 years of racing, which is pretty exciting. So what is specific about Formula E? Actually, a lot of it is pretty standard in FIA point of view. So we are racing single-seater cars that look similar to Formula One. The governance is extremely similar, FIA World Championship. The main difference, of course, is that the cars are all electric. So the idea behind that, we'll talk about it in more details, is to accelerate innovation and develop that technology as quickly as possible. So what is also specific about Formula E is that we try really hard from the beginning and still now to get as close to the people. So we try to race as much as possible in the heart of cities. where the impact is so much greater than if you race kind of in the middle of nowhere somewhere. It is also an awful lot easier for fans to attend, and of course the carbon footprint of that is a lot smaller. So we've had some incredible races over the years and still do in London, Monaco, center of Tokyo. I mean, in year one, we're racing around the Red Square in Moscow. Just incredible places we've been racing and showcasing these amazing cars. And I think that's one of really the cool part of Formula E is that we're taking these cars now at crazy speeds, but also we take them into really unique and special places where we would not be able to go racing if the cars were IC powered. So it's kind of using both. I mentioned, so FIA Formula E is now a world championship. It probably doesn't mean that much to you, but in kind of the hierarchy of racing, the world championship is the highest level. So you have Formula One, Formula E, the World Endurance Championship, the Le Mans Racing, and then the World Rally Championship. So in a relatively short amount of years, Formula E has made it to the pinnacle, to the top of racing, which for fans doesn't make a big difference, but for the sport means a lot because it means we are fully backed by the FIA, the regulations, the governance, just the overall credibility of the sport, the long-term forecast. We're able to make plans at 10, 20-year outlook, which is a great place to be when you're developing technology and developing a roadmap. So really it shows, to make us feel good, it shows how seriously the FIA and the whole motorsport and automotive world really is taking electric cars on the racing part, because they know Formula E is going to be a key part in the awareness and how we make these cars exciting. And on the commercial side, also a very encouraging sign. Formula E, the promoter, the company Formula E, if you want the sport, has had many investments over the years and has had a very significant majority investment at the end of last year from Liberty Global. So you might know one of the largest media companies in the world, the kind of sister company of Liberty Media that own Formula One. So that makes us feel quite good because we know we have very strong commercial and financial backing for the sport. And Liberty are a company that know how to make a sport grow in a really big way and how to increase the fan base and make it really exciting. So a lot of good things happening in terms of the cars, where we go racing, the backing, and the long-term forecast. Of course, the teams. So I've been lucky to be involved from the very beginning, being one of the crazy few that believed in electric racing in 2010. So our team used to be called Virgin Racing. It's now called Envision Racing. Envision, for those who don't know, is one of the largest now green tech company in the world, developing wind turbines, batteries, digital solutions. So we are building gigafactories all around the world at the moment for most of the major manufacturers, as well as very large wind turbine and green hydrogen plants all over the world. So that's really exciting, and then it gives us really good kind of storytelling around Formula E and why we're here, and the whole energy supply chain, if you want, in terms of like making the electricity, distributing it, and going all the way to the car. That there's something interesting there, because a lot of people still don't quite understandably, the magic of that chain when it's all integrated and how much better it is. It's not just the car. But of course, we're also competing with many other fantastic teams, from old school, fantastic motorsport names, all the way to car manufacturers like Porsche, Nissan, Jaguar, Stellantis, which are completely needed because these manufacturers use the platform to develop the technology. And I'll go into a bit more details later. But the tech that we are putting in these cars is pretty exceptional. So yeah, that's what Formula E is about. We are basically, from the beginning, we haven't really changed the business model, which is to do two things. The first one is to do what motorsport does really well, which is to use the competition and the amazing engineers' brain power that we have to advance the technology, to innovate constantly, because if we try to go faster than the guy next door, we just work really, really hard to make that happen. So I'll give you some examples later. But the second pillar and the second equally important part of Formula E is kind of the media platform, really, and the marketing side. Especially now it's a lot easier to talk about electric racing, but believe me, in 2012, 13, 14, when we were talking about going racing with electric cars, people's eyes were like that, like, what are you doing? So there was a long, long way to go at the time to just change perceptions and make electric cars look cool. And I'm a big believer that anyone now who's been watching races on TV or came to races live, or the more you do this, the more your subconscious makes you realize, if these cars can race for an hour at 300 kph, then most likely this technology is good enough to do my school run and go to the shop and do what I do, right? Like there's a strong link between seeing these cars do amazing things. It creates a link, even though we don't drive at that speed on the road in everyday life. It gives us this subconscious feeling that, yeah, this technology is mature now. It's not something that just doesn't work. So yeah, that's Formally. So instead of me talking for a long time, I think we have a quick video next, and then we'll talk about the tech a little bit. But that should give you a bit of a flavor of what Formally is like.
Wins this race, he absolutely deserves it. Both those guys. Robin Flight wins in Paris. Nick Cassidy takes victory in London. Back-to-back wins for the Envision team. Very good start from Cassidy. Absolutely flies off the line.
Our winner from Envision Racing is Nick Cassidy.
We agreed in Monaco. A big send from Nick Cassidy. He's going to want someone. He's going for another. Cassidy flying. The checkered flag is there. Cassidy wins in Monaco and moves to the lead of the Formula One Championship.
It's pole position, led every single lap, and he comes around the final corner to win the final race of 2023. Envision Racing will take the team's title in 2023. It's go in Let's Go City. Away comes over in second. It's Jaguar and Cassidy on top. Right comes over in second.
Great. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense for those who haven't watched too much about the emotion and the vibe you're getting when going to races. So technology, which is one of the first key pillar, right? So there are so many aspects, so I'll try not to be too geeky about it. But before I go there, just a bit of history, right? So in 12 years of racing, we operate on 4-year cycles, similar to Formula One and other main championships. So you have a roadmap with X technology and X regulations for a number of years. When we started racing in 2014, sorry, we needed 2 cars per driver to do a 45 minute race, which is highly unusual. So each team has 2 drivers, as normal, but I had 4 cars in my garage. And the reason why was simply the technology was not good enough. Even the best technology at the time was not good enough to have a car that could go at these speeds for 45 minutes. The energy density and the power density wasn't there. So we had 2 cars per driver, which means the drivers would start on the grid the race, and at the halfway point, after 20-25 minutes, the drivers would literally drive in the garage at speed, literally jump out of their first car, jump in their second car, and go again. Strange, entertaining and fun, but strange. At the time, everybody was asking me, Sylvain, what are you doing? If anything, you're highlighting the problems of electric cars. This is ridiculous. What are you doing? And our answer was, we've got to start somewhere. Don't judge us on where we are today. Please judge us on how quickly we're going to improve that technology, because we're going to work hard at it. And I used to make the analogy of the mobile phone, that started pretty ridiculous and improved quite quickly. Fast forward 4 years, season 5, 4 years after the beginning, we developed a brand new car, and suddenly we could do the whole race, same distance, at much higher speeds, with only 1 car. So very visibly, big improvement in energy density and power density and weight of the car. So going faster with only 1 car. And then that took us 4 years later to Gen 3, which is the car we are still racing now, but in the Evo version, where we managed to, obviously still 1 car, but we managed to do longer races and close to 50% more power. So we are now at 350 kilowatt, which is about 500 horsepower, and a lot of torque. So we basically managed to reduce the weight a lot by more than 200 kilograms, increase a lot the efficiency, which we'll talk about now, and that allowed us to have a car really light, basically Formula One weight, as well as lasting for a whole race for close to an hour. So again, in less than 10 years, if someone would have said 10 years ago, you'll have an electric car lighter than a Formula One car with the battery included and accelerating faster, no one would have believed it. So really, really high rate of improvement. So we are now in the last year, we're about to start the last year of this generation, and then I'll talk about the next one. So to give you some key numbers, right, to put that into context. Efficiency, 95%, actually 96% really, is the efficiency of our car. So what does that mean? Comparing apples and apples, if you drive an IC petrol diesel car on the road today, the efficiency of your car is roughly 25-30%. On a good day, when the engine is warm and you're doing actually a long trip, if you do a very short run, few kilometers to the school, it can be far worse than that. So what it means is when you put 10 liters of fuel in your tank, 7.5 to 8 is wasted in friction and heat. Only 2 liters out of the 10 actually make their way to the wheel and move you forward. So a huge amount of waste. The reason why petrol cars still have such a good range, despite such a horrible efficiency, is because of the incredible energy density of fossil fuel. In just a liter, you have more than 10 kilowatt hour of energy in 1 liter of fuel, which is why we're all addicted to fossil fuels for good reason, because of that incredible energy density, which allows us to fly planes and send rockets and all these kind of things. But the cars themselves, horribly efficient. So even in terms of, even if you don't care too much about the environment, in terms of cost and money, we're wasting 80% of the money we're putting in our tank. A good electric road car, so any good electric car on our road, much better, 80, 85%, maybe a tiny bit more for the latest ones on 800 volts. So much better. And we're comparing kind of apples and apples. So we're comparing from the DC bus of the battery, so energy getting out of the battery, to the wheel. So battery, inverter, motor, gearbox, diff, drive shaft, wheel. It's kind of a traction chain. So a lot more efficient, which is the reason why really ultimately we all need to drive electric cars. It's not because we love batteries particularly, but there's absolutely no other technology out there that is anywhere near as efficient as a pure battery electric car. It's the name of the game. Hybrid fuel cells are about 50%, something like. There's nothing that gets anywhere near the efficiency. So again, if you put 10 kilowatt hour in that battery, suddenly 8.5, close to 9, goes to the wheel. Much better. Of course, the range up to now, it's getting okay now, but at the beginning the range was an issue simply because there was not enough energy stored in the battery in the first place, but the efficiency is really high. Our cars, so remember, 2025, 85 for road cars, our electric cars are more than 95, 96 in our case. Again, and I'm not comparing motorsport and road, it's directly comparable. We are comparing the energy going out of the battery, doing inverter, motor, gearbox, diff, drive shaft, wheel. So really, you can really compare the two. So our Formula E cars are insanely efficient. That comes from many reasons. Really high voltage. So we pioneered 800 volts architecture more than 8 years ago, which is now the new standard for new road electric cars. So we'll talk about that later. Of course, very fancy inverters and motors, and very high power density, so very lightweight and very efficient. So you cannot put this directly into a road car. I mean, you could, but it's expensive. It will trickle down. So very high voltage, really very advanced inverters, motors, and very advanced electronics and software and energy management. So all these give you this amazing efficiency, which will make its way to road cars. It will be a while before we get to 95, 96%, but we'll ink closer to 90, and we'll get to that point. Efficiency, as you know, there's no downside to efficiency. It's better. You can either have a longer range with the same battery, or which we will start seeing, new EVs in the future will start to have smaller batteries, because we'll realize we don't all need a car that has a range of 500 miles. So you'll start to see cars with smaller batteries, which then you get into this virtuous cycle where the car is lighter, therefore even more efficient because you carry less weight, it's cheaper, less carbon to manufacture, all these benefits. So efficiency is really the most important thing. And this is what Formula E is working on. And to give you some context, for us, the reason why we focus on efficiency, it's a very clever roadmap that was made by the FIA in collaboration with us, is that for us, the efficiency is the differentiating factor in performance. So all the cars have the same power. So I don't go faster and I don't win a race versus the other guys because I have more power. We all have the same power. But it's a race to efficiency. So if I am 96% efficient and the other team is 95% efficient, I go faster because I have 1% more energy to play with, which I can use at some point in a race. So it's basically the same, but the equation is flipped on its head. And that's a really clever way of doing it because that means the technology we're developing is directly relevant to road cars, something that hasn't happened in a while in motorsports, whilst keeping a really good sporting aspect because it's the differentiating factor between the teams. Regen, quickly, you all know what regen is on a road car. So again, this is a big innovation. Typically, if you drive an electric road car at the moment of any type, typically the regen will be 80, 100, maybe 150 kilowatts. If you've driven one, you know it's quite a lot of slowing power, right? If you are full regen on the 90% SOC, it slows the car quite a lot. We have 600 kilowatts of regen, so try to extrapolate that. Maximum regen from both our motors, rear and front, is kind of a similar braking force to you slamming the brakes on your road car. Like, it's a huge amount of braking power purely from the electric motors, simply because we have a very light car, a lot of power output out, which means we're able to do the same regen in. So what that means is that during the race weekend, you have qualifying, which is really all about fastest possible lap time, and we don't care too much about power and energy and efficiency. But then you have the race, which is all about efficiency and energy management. So we don't have enough energy in the car to go flat out for the entire duration of the race, which, by the way, is the same for the Le Mans cars and the F1 cars, and everyone's doing the same, but we're doing it on our side. So the art in Formula E is to first have the car, the hardware and software that is as efficient as possible, and secondly, be really clever around how and where you use the energy around the track. But the combination of this really high regen, so every time we slow down in a race, we almost never use the friction brakes. We only slow down on regen, which means we don't waste any energy, apart from the slight inefficiency at the top. So what that means is that every time we accelerate full power, because we reach such high speed, we have a huge velocity to then slow down at each corner. So when you regen at 600 kilowatts, you're able to regen huge amount of energy in the battery. So what that means, and that's my favorite stat of all of them, is that the combination of very high efficiency of the whole powertrain, traction chain, plus this really high amount of regen, means that if you look at the whole energy used by the car during the race, 100% of the energy used by the car during the race, 40% of that, almost half, has been created by the car itself in the race. That's kind of like the car has its own power plant. A road car would be around 5%, depending on how you drive and where you drive. So almost half of the energy used by the car in the race was not there in the battery when we started the race. That's quite exciting. And this is the direction of road cars, where road cars will go in the future. So don't be alarmed, but in the future, near future, your road cars will have pretty much no friction brakes. They will have emergency brakes, but you'll do all your braking on regen. You save weight, you save, obviously, the particles that come from the disc brakes and the pads and all this. So again, there's no downside of regen. You get more energy back for free. You don't use your brakes. It's lighter. So, I mean, it will be a while before we have no brakes at all. You'll still have some brakes for emergency and safety, but more and more we'll try to increase the regen, because that, in combination with high efficiency, just gives you this complete no-brainer, of energy. Then it's racing, so it's meant to be fast. It's exciting. If you come to a Formula E race, you've got to come to a race, really. TV tends to kind of mute the sense of speed in any kind of motorsport. If you see these cars passing in front of you at 280 kph on the pit wall, it's quite impressive. So our cars currently, already, can do the 0 to 60 miles an hour in 1.8 seconds, which is quite impressive. It's by far, it's the fastest race car ever designed in any category ever, which is quite cool after 10 years of development. And also, we are using tires that are kind of road-derived tires, so if we were to put F1 slick tires on it, we'd go even faster. So that's quite exciting. And then the last thing, fast charging. So that's an angle that we've been working on, because we know the hurdles to mass adoption are, car range, cost, and ability to fast charge reliably. So you all know you can charge at home at 7 kilowatts. You can charge on the motorway anywhere between 150 and 350 for the absolute best case scenario for a short period of time. We've developed a 600 kilowatt charger. We wanted to show that we can, it's not fantasy, it's not a PowerPoint, you can charge very fast. So it took us 2 years. It wasn't so easy. But last year we managed to make it work reliably after 2 years of testing. So at some races now, to showcase how quick we can charge these cars, we do what we call a pit boost, which is a normal pit stop, as you can imagine. The cars come back in the pit lane, stop in front of the garage, and we, instead of refueling in the olden days in F1, we plug in our fast charger. And in 30 seconds, at 600 kilowatt flat rate, we're able to add 10% of SOC in the battery. So 30 seconds, which is long-ish for a pit stop, But 30 seconds is very quick. You go and the car goes again, and we've added 10% in the battery, which is 4 kilowatt hour, whatever. That again, it's not fantasy; it works. We are doing it in a race environment. So again, it shows where the technology is heading. And in the near future, depending on the grid in each country, and there are many factors, but we will get to a point where 500-600 kilowatt chargers will be a standard that will exist. And then depending on how many cars are there and the grid and so on, you'll be able to charge these cars. And critically, it works in tandem with the batteries. So the latest battery chemistries are able to accept this kind of charge with the adequate cooling and software management and so on. So it's really important to show all of this together. Super high efficiency, crazy fast charging, and it makes these cars almost literally as good as petrol cars. You can imagine in the future charging pit stop on the motorway on the M40 of 7-8 minutes, and that's half your battery or 60% of your battery, and off you go. Like, it's the same as refueling a car. It's not fantasy, it's working today. And then it's not on there, but a quick word on Gen 4, which is to show you what's coming in the future. So as we are about to go racing end of this year for the last season of this Gen 3 car, we are next year developing our Gen 4 car. And to give you an idea of how bonkers things are becoming, we are taking our current car and we are about to almost double the power. So currently we have 350 kilowatt. The new car will be 600 kilowatt. That's 850 horsepower, but electric horsepower is faster, a lot of torque. So we are getting very close to Formula 1 power. Formula 1 will be 700 kilowatt. So a really, really crazy amount of power and more energy in the battery every generation. We're able to store more and more and more energy in the same dimension because of improvements in energy and power density. So we'll have more energy to play with, double the power, and we will have all-wheel drive in permanence all the time. That will give some absolute bonkers lap time. We have to now develop new tires because the power is just too much. We have to put more aero on the car, more downforce because the car is just too fast. And we've done some simulation around Monaco, which is a good track because you can compare a lot of categories. And we will be the second fastest car bar F1, faster than anything else, which is not bad after 11, 12 years of R&D. You look back on YouTube on the races in the first 2 years, and the cars were pretty slow. And fast forward 10 years, and these cars are absolute rocket ships. So already in testing, very early days of testing with the mule car, the car is reaching 330 kilometers an hour, and the car is not developed at all. It's an early mule. So really crazy performance, which I think will have a big, big effect in, again, the psyche of anyone watching these races and realizing, wow, this technology is unbelievable these days. Cool. Sustainability, I think this was why we're here. So I think it's pretty obvious, obviously, why we're here and what Formula E do. The beauty of what we do is that we have a very clear roadmap that I talked about earlier, technology and the media side. And really the technology, it's all about improving that technology, all these points I talked about. So it gives us a really nice long-term vision of what we need to do our bit. And of course, the main credibility is the track-to-road technology, right? So all the manufacturers, but not just them, the suppliers, companies like Envision, we're all learning from what we're doing in Formula E to develop fast chargers, powertrains, inverters, all these things that make their way to road cars. So the example being the 800-volt new standard of most new electric cars that are coming out was developed in Formula E. So in terms of pure sustainability, of course, we have to walk the talk. So we, as a team, have been net zero from the very beginning. We take that very seriously. Formula E as a sport has been net zero also from the beginning. I believe this is the only sport to have ever done that. A lot of things go into this, by the way, not just the cars, but I talked about earlier the attendance, people being able to take public transport or walk to races. There are many aspects that go into that. But we also take a lot of care in trying to minimize the carbon footprint of what we are doing on the R&D side and the car and the materials used. So the batteries, for example, after every season, we don't put them in the bin, we refurbish them. And actually, batteries are able to do a lot more than one season. So a few cells might get a bit tired, so we replace them, but it's quite minimal. And part of the regulations, we have to use the one same battery for each car for the whole season, which is really impressive. In F1, they'll use 3 or 4 engines per season. We use one battery for the whole season. So it would be too easy to put a battery in and then, really abuse it and put it in the bin, but we can't do that. So the life cycle of the car is actually highly efficient because it has to be relevant to road cars, right? Same on the set of tires. So we, in a way, compromise our performance. We could make the cars go faster on a lap time basis by putting more higher grip tires, but that would mean using a lot more sets of tires per weekend. And since we are all using the same tires, there's no really benefit there. So we've been restricted to 2 sets of tires per car for a whole weekend, which is very, very low compared to any other forms of motorsport. And that has a massive carbon footprint impact because we just use very few tires, and also the logistics of them. Moving these tires around the world, it's a lot smaller. So we try to do all these things. And of course, on the bodywork, kind of the parts that are standard, so the bodywork and the chassis is the same for everybody. We don't develop all of that because there's no point really compared to road cars. So we use a lot of recycled materials for the bodywork. They say 10% is coming from the previous generation, but actually there's more. There's more other materials recycled because there's no performance advantage in a way. If we're all using the same part, then you can afford to be 500 grams heavier and then use a lot of recycled materials and so on. So it's quite a good way of doing it. And then I talked a bit about the media platform. So really, formally, again, 2 things: developing the tech, make it exciting, but really, there's little point doing that on our own and no one knowing about it. Really, the big impact of Formula E is try to put these really exciting cars and teams and drivers in front of as many people as possible. So we are expanding the calendar every year. We have more and more races. We go to more and more places around the world. We are pretty much the only motorsport that goes around the world every year. We do it in a really rational way to avoid the zigzag around the world, but we try to cover many territories because this is what gives the impact. So these numbers, I believe, are actually from last year, from season 10. We don't have the latest numbers from the season just finished. So total TV viewership is a very accepted, understood way of measuring audience, which is basically adding up all the audience of every race. So it's a 1 minute audience per race live, plus the highlights within a week, something like this. And that gives you a measure that all the sports use. So you take the audience of every race, you add them up, and that gives you your cumulative audience for the year. So I believe for this season just finished, we are well in excess of 500 million. So more than 500 million people have watched these races, which starts to put Formula E in kind of the big league territory. Like past that kind of threshold, it becomes to be a sport that really has a genuine impact and is reaching a lot of people, which we hope will start a virtuous cycle because more and more B2C brands will start to want to be involved because just by the sheer amount of people we reach, which then will have this amplifying effect of the sport when all these brands get involved. Average race views at about 31 million I talked about, and fan base, which is really important. So again, I'm not a specialist, but if you know a bit about this, there's a kind of accepted definition of what a fan is, so you can measure it. So all the sports, football, motorsport, they all use the same definition. So to be defined as a fan, you have to have been to X amount of races, watch X amount of races, be active on social media and comment, all these things. If you tick all the boxes, you're a fan, and we're able to measure that. So 374 million, and the target is to get to 500 million fans by 2030, which again, once we reach these numbers, they are still shy of Formula One numbers, but they are definitely second best. We get bigger than every other motorsport and most sports out there, which is great because for the same effort we put in, developing the cars, going racing, the more people watch and interact, the better, the more impact we have, and hopefully the more it gives a good image and a good, exciting view of electric cars. And then social press impressions, 2 billion, and that number is growing very fast because, as you can imagine, this is how content is viewed these days. That's it. That's me. Bang on time, pretty much. Cool.
Thank you very much. We are a little tight on time, but we can fit in a couple of questions if anyone has one from the audience. If there's, yes, we have a hand at the front.
Hi there. I work in the sort of television, film and events industry, so we're obviously used to sort of mobile power supplies. Are you transporting, obviously, battery systems for your fast charging? And the other quick question is lithium-ion really going to be the future of storage? Is that all we're stuck with?
Yeah, try to keep it short. Yeah, so all the media, all that is remote. That's done in the UK. We don't transport any of it as the new way of doing sports. There's obviously the local filmmakers, all the stuff is at base. Chargers, yes, we transport them around, but they are teeny. It's the size of a suitcase. So the 600 kilowatt charger, it's like the size of a big suitcase, basically, which is quite exciting. And batteries, lithium batteries, I'll keep it short. Yes and no. Yes, in terms of we still see 6 to 8% improvement in energy density year on year, just refining and improving the chemistry of these batteries. So if you're interested, Google it, but you'll see now there's a lot of research because so many electric cars now have done hundreds of thousands of miles. Some of them have done 1 million kilometers. So we have now a lot of data around battery degradation and so on. And you can see that all these batteries far outlast the car, like your suspension and your chassis collapses before the battery is dead. So in a way, it gives us a lot of confidence around the technology and the chemistry. All the latest generation batteries are insanely robust. Do you forecast 2-3% degradation after 10 years? Like you're talking something negligible. And of course, you get all the benefits I talked about. For these 10 years, you get all these amazing benefits of the efficiency. And therefore, over the lifetime of the car, you use many, many, many times less energy than you would have in a petrol car. Having said that, there's many axes of development, right? So battery EV, as I said, yes, because we have not yet invented anything more efficient. And to be fair, at 95-96% efficient, it's hard to see what will be more efficient than an electric motor directly connected to the wheels. It's unlikely. So really, it's all about improving and constantly improving the energy density of the energy storage, which is batteries. So you have solid state, you have lithium air, you have all sorts of things. Literally billions of R&D are spent every year on this. And you can see the results. I mean, you can now buy an affordable EV with a range of a car that would have cost 3 times as much 4 years ago. So there's massive improvements in battery energy tech and motors. So the aim is to be able to have on the road a plethora of affordable electric cars that can do more than what you need in terms of even traveling with fast charging for over 5 years, far, far, far less money than a petrol car. I've always been a fan of saying we don't need or want subsidies because we just want to make the product better in every single way. The car is faster, using far less energy, it's far cheaper to run, it's much nicer to drive. There's just no downside. And we'll get there by working on all these elements.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed for that question. I'm afraid we are out of time now, but fascinating progress, fascinating technology. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you.